This AGIGer is one of the most well-known doll photographers in our community. She has been featured on her local news, been recognized by the people who she recreates with her dolls in her photos, and has even worked with American Girl. I actually met her at Joss's release in Seattle, and she signed my Joss's foot. On this episode of DollCast, we will be talking to 5HensAndACockatiel about her photography journey, her biggest tips, and her future goals for her photography career. Hey guys, it's Allie, and welcome back to another episode of DollCast. On today's episode, we have our first AGIGer on the series, 5HensAndACockatiel. Hi.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself to anyone who is mainly just on AGTube and doesn't really know who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Sydney. I have an Instagram and YouTube channel called 5HensAndACockatiel, but I'm mainly on Instagram, and I usually just take daily photos of my dolls. I create semi-elaborate scenes. A lot of my photos have been recreations of films and movies, and I've been doing this since I was about 12 years old, but really focusing on the photography since I was about 15.
So I think we're going to start off with a lightning round just so people can quickly get some information about you. So how many dolls do you have?
I have absolutely no idea, but probably upwards of 50 or so.
When did you start your Instagram?
It was December of 2013, so I was 15 years old.
How many followers do you have on your Instagram?
I think I have around 61,000.
Who is your favorite doll that American Girl has ever made?
Oh, doll. Probably like overall doll and character, it would have to be Addie. I love her books more than anything else. I think she's adorable and her collection is wonderful. But Kit, like the literal doll, and also her story, but like I love the doll so much. So it's really hard to decide, but probably Addie, second Kit.
I read Addie's first book, and normally I don't read the American Girl books anymore. It's kind of bad. I have them all in my nightstand.
I haven't either in so long. I haven't read I haven't even read Nenea's
I have to
books,
read Nenea's, I have to read Melody's,
Yeah.
I have to read Gabriella's. So many. But somebody told me to read Addie's book, and I could not put it down. It was so good.
I know.
And then I just wanted to hug my
amazing.
Addie doll.
I know, and aren't the illustrations just incredible? I think for me, one of the big parts about not reading the books anymore is that they don't have the illustrations, and I know they just kind of revamped them, but then the books are abridged, so I'm really sad about that.
Yeah, I don't have the illustrations in any of mine except for one old Meet Rebecca book, and I think some of my Girl of the Year ones.
Oh, it's so sad.
Final lightning round question. What is better, Girl of the Year or Be Forever?
Be Forever, definitely.
I figured you were going to say that based
yeah,
on
it's
the last
a hardcore
question.
Be Forever fan.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the first topic of today, and that is going to be doll photography. So what got you into doll photography?
A couple things. So I was around 12 years old, and I started I didn't really start growing out of my dolls, but my friends were growing out of them, and it was really hard to get myself motivated to keep playing with them. And I'm like, well, I love them so much. What do I do? And I found a blog called Pleasant Piper. And it was this professional photographer who took pictures of her American Girl doll, and she just created the most elaborate, brilliant stories around Piper and her, her world of friends. And as soon as I saw that, I just was like, I gotta do this. I really, really want to do this. And I also loved watching videos like Steven's What a Dancer on YouTube, and a ton of different AG2 videos that got me really into the idea of older kids and teenagers and even adults playing with dolls still. So that's really what kind of inspired me to get into the doll photography world.
Nice. I feel so many people, their stories involve they have friends who played with dolls, but I just I know for me, I've discovered them on my own through the magazine, which I feel
Really?
Yeah, my parents got me a subscription for Hanukkah in 2011 to the American Girl magazine. I assume they just Googled magazines for kids.
That's so cool.
And, yeah, I saw the ads.
Wait, so the literal magazine?
Yeah.
Oh wait,
I had the magazine for so many years. I still have all of my issues.
Oh, that's so cool. So I thought you were talking about the catalog, but
the
American Girl magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I loved that magazine so much. I actually have a few issues from the 90s,
cool.
And they're just so fun. I poured over mine too.
The magazines were my childhood. I wrote the letter to the editor and decorated it.
Yes!
It never got featured. But the ads, there would be ads for the dolls, and I'd see all the people with their mini-me's, and then that's why I got a mini-me as soon as we got American Girl in Canada.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm so happy that you were able to get her even though you're in Canada. I mean, I feel like it's so much harder for collectors up there because of shipping costs and like not being able to go down to a store as easily.
I'm very thankful that I actually live like 15 minutes away from my store. It's really easy for me to get to, like 2 buses.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's kind of bad though because I pass it so often. And it's in a bookstore, so sometimes my sister will have to go there to buy a book, and then I'm like, let's impulse buy something from American Girl.
Exactly.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there next week because there's like a 20% off sale that's supposed to happen.
Do they like supply, like every year, do they have like all of the Girl of the Year stuff? I mean, I think the stores are kind of smaller, right? So do they have every historical character and all of that, or do they kind of pare it down?
We don't. We used to have Addie, but then she started like getting cubed and like we don't have her anymore because they wanted to make room for like other dolls. And we don't have as much stock as some of the other stores, and some Truly Me is like 62. I had to get someone to pick her up for me from the benefit sale because we don't have 62 available in Canada, at least at my store. You can order online.
It's so
but
weird. It's like selected few that just don't exist.
Yeah, like the Beef Forevers that we have Nanea, Melody, Rebecca, Mary Ellen, Kit, and Julie, I think.
Okay, well, you have the very much most like best-selling dolls up there, which is understandable.
Most dolls I need will be here, but then occasionally I have to go to USA, like for Kaya.
Yeah. It's so sad. Kaya's not in Canada.
We don't have Josefina.
Really?
Yeah, and then some of the items on the AG website won't even ship to Canada, and with the pandemic, I can't
that's
go to my PO
what
box.
really bothers me too. Yeah.
So what is the hardest photo that you've ever taken?
There are a lot of difficult photos. I don't know, like there's been a few where I've been really, really frustrated. Like I once tried to, a few years ago, take a video. It was like a video/photo of one of my dolls ice skating, and so I wanted to take several different shots of her like ice skating across the ice, and I had this little drainage ditch in my neighbor's yard that was frozen over, and I decided to take my doll down there, and my mom hooked up like this fishing pole. She made like this fishing pole and hooked it onto my doll's back, and we were trying to make her look like she was ice skating, but she kind of looked like she was just swinging around. That was so frustrating, and the final result ended, it was pretty good, but something like that really, really frustrates me. But in the end we got something fun. But another one I would say is trying to get like Hagrid's hut. Like I don't know if you've seen like my Prisoner of Azkaban photos.
Yes.
But I did like this Harry Potter shoot, and it was just really, really, really fun. But it took several months to get everything together because my mom was thinking, oh my goodness, we should do Hagrid, and I was thinking, okay, but we also want to do Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and we want to do Buckbeak as well. And so it just was like many, many months of gathering all of the different elements for this photo shoot, and then on the day of, we went down to this field that I love, but it was covered in goose poop that day, and so we were like having to shovel all of the goose poop out of the way, and I made like this 20 by 10 foot spot that was pretty clear, and then it started to rain. It was just like this, it was terrible, and it was really fun. We got the photos, but it took about 3 or 4 hours. Oh my goodness. And then editing those was a lot of fun. But I think like the more involved photo shoots are just relatively difficult compared to anything else. Just when there's a lot of different elements, it definitely ramps up the difficulty.
I do a lot of portraits, so they usually don't take too long to shoot, especially because I have a lot of backgrounds. But I really admire anyone who does like sets and props because I want to, but I just like don't have the time to put effort into those sets and props. So what is your favorite photo that you've ever taken?
There's a lot of like it kind of switched. Like if you hear people ask me this all the time, and I usually give a different photo for each answer because I have a collection that I just love. Like one of them that I adore is the Stand By Me photo I got of the 4 boys walking back into town.
I watched Stand By Me a few days ago. I had to watch it for drama class, and it was so cute.
Isn't it wonderful?
I love all the boys.
I know, me too. That photo of like them walking into town, definitely one of my very favorites. Another one of my favorite photos is after I had just watched Stranger Things, like the first season in 2016 for the first time, and I was so in love, and I'm like, okay, I have to do something Stranger Things related. And this is right when I was figuring out how to manipulate lighting, and I just got my flashes, and so I was learning a bunch of stuff very new. And after dark, this is like my very first outdoor, sun is not anywhere around photo shoot. I set up a couple of my flashes, and I had my 11 doll and I had a Mike doll in the background, like shining a flashlight at her. And it makes me feel so happy thinking about this picture, because I just poured my heart into it and I didn't know what I was doing, and it turned out really well. And a lot of my favorite photos have to do with the memories that surround them, like what kind of went on during that day and like all the prep going into them.
Where do you get a lot of your inspiration for your photos?
Most of my inspiration comes from like the films I watch, the books I read. It's a lot of storytelling, I think. Whenever I see something, even in real life though, like, you know, a kid playing with her puppy and the puppy like runs away from her and she has to go try to catch it before it, you know, jumps into a pile of leaves or something like that. Like, I always think, oh my goodness, that could be a really fun photo. And then it's an interesting time of trying to take that real life moment and put it into something that can be easily relatable when you're seeing like a doll do it with a dog, because, you know, dolls can't bend and they don't have very many emotions, and so it's just like this smiling doll. So I usually try to just kind of see what's out there in the world, and yeah, do my best to kind of put it into photo form for a doll. But I usually try to tell a story wherever I go.
So you worked with American Girl a few years ago for Z's release because you're from Seattle. Z's from Seattle. So can you tell me about that experience and the whole process?
Yeah, that's actually really fun. I don't think anyone's really asked me about that before. American Girl reached out to me like right before, I think it was like at the end of 2016, and they asked me, hey, we have this thing that we would love to work on with you. Are you cool? And I'm like, yes, I want to do it, whatever it is. And it was a lot of like back and forth, emailing each other and kind of figuring out like when we should hop on a call, and I had no idea what was going on, but I was very excited at just the idea of working with American Girl. And they told me we are launching this new doll. Her name is Z. You've probably heard of her because of like the YouTube videos that we've made for her, and we would love to fly out to your house and have you kind of create different scenes around Z's story. And we'll just like photograph you and video you doing your thing. And, you know, of course, that was the best thing that I could have possibly dreamed of happening. I was so ecstatic, and immediately I also was incredibly nervous because I did not want to mess it up at all. And so for the next like 2 months, from like January to March, I just spent all of my spare time coming up with ideas, poring over Z's books, trying to get information out of American Girl about what would be in Z's collection so that I could figure out exactly how to photograph it and what would be, you know, the best way to do that. And yeah, at the beginning of March, our producer was here, and their social media manager and their photographer flew out to my place, and we just spent 2 days in my dining room and in my living room and walking around Seattle in the pouring rain, just kind of setting up different scenes for Z, and it was incredible. I still can't believe it happened, but yeah, if you have any specific questions, go ahead and ask me. That was very much an overview, but yeah, it was one of my favorite experiences.
I always love looking at the catalogs and even like the sets that they would make in the magazines with like photos of dolls, and then trying to figure out what items they used to make the set.
Yes, exactly.
American Girl photos are so good.
Oh, they're so incredible. I know. And being able to like talk to the actual photographer who takes so many of those pictures, I was like shaking. It was one of my favorite things that I've ever been able to do. Yeah, so one of my favorite things is just like poring over the old catalogs. I love seeing the images that they have of like the girls reading her book with like her American Girl next to her. Like old catalog covers are just beautiful, and I love the ideas kind of that go into those.
I distinctly remember it was one of like the first AG catalogs I got, and it was like when 61 was released, and then there's like a pet shop in the background and she's walking a bunch of dogs, and it looked like an actual street.
Oh,
it was so cool.
Yes, and I think in like the last few years, I love what American Girl has done with their Instagram, because they made, do you remember all of those videos that they were doing for a while of like American Girl Fairway Place?
Yes.
Where they made like these rooms, and they would do these like sped up videos of them like decorating all of the bedrooms,
Yes.
and like a game room and a kitchen. Oh my goodness. So fun.
I just wish I had like a huge collection of like every single American Girl item and then just making rooms.
I know, me too. Yeah, I wish I had. I've thought of this many times. Like, my very dream residence for myself would be, I have my own little house, and then I build a doll village, and I create like Kit's house, like based off of her illustrations, where you have like the front, and you'll have like the street of American Girl houses, and they're all actually doll sized, and then you go to the backs of them, and each one is set up with like all of the little rooms, and you have like Kit's kitchen and Kit's bedroom, and yeah, and like same thing with Addie. You have Kirsten's log cabin, you have Addie's garret room. Oh my goodness. It's just such a fun fantasy for me. The idea of just having like this American Girl street where you can go in and just see all of your dolls' worlds around you, and you can kind of visit each one in its own turn, fills me with more joy than I can possibly say.
That's better than my dream home. My dream home was just like something with an office space that I can use for YouTube, sewing, and photography.
Yours is much more manageable and affordable. Mine will never happen. I have to win like 6 lotteries.
Another thing I'd love to do is like get like a house, kind of like one of those like social media houses that are popular, and then fill it with like AGIGers and AGTubers, and then we have like collaborative space to like be creative with our dolls, but then we all live together.
I love that idea. That is where it's at. That is amazing. I actually haven't been able to meet that many AGIGers. Thankfully, I've met you, and I've met like a couple other people at the Seattle store, but for the most part, I haven't been to many meetups or anything, and I want to so badly, especially when I see people talking about like the benefit sale and all of that, and I've never been.
Oh, I want to go to the benefit sale.
I know, like you'll see 50 AGIGers there all just, taking photos together and everything, and I'm just like in my little corner going, well, maybe next year.
Yeah, I want to go so badly, but Wisconsin's quite far from where you and I live.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still living with my parents, so I can't just be like, hey, I want to fly to Wisconsin.
I can just go into Wisconsin. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel the same way. It's like I technically have the money for it, but then it's like the hassle of flying out there, renting a car, or getting Ubers everywhere, and then having to pay for a place to stay and getting to and from the benefit sale. Like, there's just so many different elements, and since I'd probably be going alone, I just don't want to tackle it right now.
Like, I'd love to go for the experience, because it is an experience, but it's so much money when you factor in flights, hotels, food, car, and then of course you're spending money to get American Girl stuff.
Oh, exactly. The other whole point is to go and actually buy dolls.
Yeah.
And buy stuff. So it's like, well, there's that too, and then it's like, do you have to buy extra or bring extra luggage just to fill them with, all of your goods. So it's a lot.
I'll just get my dolls from people who go to the benefit sale.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
So do you ever get scared taking photos in a public location such as downtown Seattle or the Washington State Fair?
Yeah, so I used to get very nervous about it. I was pretty sheepish. I mean, I would still go out, like, I don't know if there's ever been a location where it scared me off too much to the point where I wouldn't take the picture. But I used to be very sheepish and try to kind of hide what I was doing, because I'm also like afraid, and I'm still a little bit afraid of people getting like too close into the shot or kind of being interrogative. I've had a couple weirdos like be very much, what's going on? What are you doing? And I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. But for the most part, like I'm pretty confident now since I've been doing this for so many years. But definitely starting out, I was much more nervous, and it's just come down to doing it so many times and realizing, nobody really cares, and the people who do find it really fun and interesting, and then you'll get your few stray people who will say, oh, that's creepy, which always irks me just a little bit, but that's all right.
Hey, at least you didn't have some random dude come up to you and another AGIGer and say, are you doing witchcraft or voodoo?
Really?
Yeah, I was shooting with AG Jitters, and I think I talked about it in a video once. we had like a really positive interaction with these two girls, and they wanted to like take photos holding our dolls. And then this guy comes along and is like, "Are you like taking photos of those Cabbage Patch dolls to sell them?" And then he's like, "Oh, I'm just making sure you guys aren't doing witchcraft or voodoo." And we're just looking at each
even better. Just looking out for you guys. Don't do any witchcraft with your Cabbage Patch dolls.
It was just random.
That's an interesting. No, I have never had that. I've had a couple slightly inebriated fellows kind of walk by, and that's the time where I've been like, all right, let's pick up and go around the corner. But for the most part, most of my interactions have been just lovely.
Have you ever accidentally scratched a doll or destroyed a doll during a photo shoot?
Yes, I have. At this point, like, I've never destroyed a doll. No doll has been utterly demolished or unrecoverable. But, I mean, when you take pictures of dolls, especially if you're outside, they're gonna face plant. I mean, if it's windy, if it's rainy, it's gonna happen, and they're always gonna fall on their face and never on their back.
I know.
And I have so many dolls with scratches, and at this point, it's like, well, I love you guys, but this is the life now. And so, I mean, I know that, like, there are ways to get rid of scratches and, like, shine marks. I haven't done it myself, but I know, like, ultimately, if it gets to a point where it's really bad, I can go down the deep hole of doll restoration and try to fix them up again. But yes, to answer the question, my dolls have suffered greatly from my photos over the last several years.
Have you ever gotten hate or been bullied for doing doll photography?
No, I haven't. I think the strongest word that has ever been said against me was, "Oh, you're doing something really creepy." Everybody's go-to, and I think of movies because of movies like Chucky and stuff. So, like, some people don't like dolls, and so when they see what I do, it's just gonna be like a thing that they don't like, and that's fine. But for the most part, I've never been bullied, which is wonderful, and yeah, I am pretty fortunate in that regard. And it also helps that I was homeschooled, and so I didn't really have the opportunity to, like, be bullied in a school setting. Like, I went to a community college. People really don't care. It's all pretty chill.
At this point, anytime I tell somebody about my dolls, I just expect them to say it's creepy because I've heard that so many times.
It's like, isn't that the go-to? Like, don't people say creepy? Even more than, like, oh, that's weird or that's strange. It's like, oh, that's creepy. It's like, well, all right.
Or, like, they can't even look at a doll without freaking out.
Yeah. I mean, okay, to be fair, there are some dolls that are unnerving. Like, I think American Girl got it really right, and their dolls are really beautiful, but I have seen many dolls that are a little terrifying.
Yeah.
I won't name brands or name types of doll because I don't want to, but there are definitely some that give me, I don't like them, so I don't photograph them.
Last night, I sent my friend a photo of the thing I sewed on my doll, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna send, like, the top itself because I don't want to show the face if you're scared. And she's like, wait, I'm not scared. And I'm like, oh, I'm confusing you with my other friend who's scared.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who grew up with American Girls, so I think that helps a lot. Like, I was surrounded by friends who just loved the dolls and they grew out of them. I didn't have very many friends who just didn't like AGs at all, so that probably helps.
The people who I knew who had American Girl dolls, including one who's actually in my collection now, like, they got them and then eventually got scared of them and kept them in the closet in perfect condition.
Oh no, like, you got them and then it just gradually dawned upon you that, these guys actually are a little unnerving.
Like, all my friends in elementary school would be like, oh yeah, they're in my closet. Do you want to buy it from me?
That's so funny. Wow, I've never heard that arc before.
They're definitely not as common in Canada, though, as they are in USA. So we're going to move into the next topic, and that is photography as a career. So I know you're a full-time photographer, so I'm just curious, when did you realize that photography could actually become a full-time career for you and not just a hobby?
It's funny because I never ever thought of myself as a photographer, that I could be a photographer, especially when I started taking doll photos. A lot of people would ask me, hey, do you want to do, family portraits someday, or, weddings, engagement, and I was such a I wasn't like a really shy person, but I had and I have a lot of performance anxiety, and so the idea of trying to tell people what to do and then, like, getting in their face and taking their picture and then sending it to them and hoping that they like the images just scared me so much. But then, like, I went to school, I went to college, and I got my associate's degree, and then I was thinking, okay, I'm going to take a year gap, and I'm going to just spend all of my time learning as much about photography as I possibly can. I'm going to try to work wherever I can, do this because I love it. I love photography so much. And if it goes great, fabulous, and if it doesn't, I'm going to pursue something else. And at that time I was thinking about being a teacher, and that year was really hard, and it was so good, but it stretched me completely because I had to get out of my comfort zone so many times. Like, I was terrified anytime I had to work with actual human beings, and I was playing around with lighting, and I got my flashes around that time, and my doll photography, because I had so much time to spend just doing photos. I wasn't in school anymore. It just really helped me grow in what I was doing, and from that point on, it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I just kind of dove into that world.
Doing human photography is way scarier because, like, you've got, like, an actual client, and then you send the photos and you're like, okay, I really hope you like them. If you don't, I'm gonna feel really awkward. Like, I took a bunch of shots for free. I need stuff for my portfolio anyways. I must have taken, like, a ton of photos over a span of, like, 2 days, a few hundred. And then I narrowed it down, edited it, and it took so much work because there were so many photos. And then I sent them, and I'm like, I hope you like them, because, like, I hadn't done human photography in a while.
Right, that's the other thing. So many pictures. Oh, I know. It's definitely nerve-wracking, and even still, I mean, I've done so many different family photos, and I think primarily outside of doll photography and like branding or not branding, but like product photography for brands. I do a lot of families, and I do a lot of events. And events are amazing, a piece of cake. I love it. It's like photojournalism. It's just going around trying to find the moments, kind of, just capturing what's going on, and that's the best. And then doing family photography, it's very interesting because it's family to family as well. Some families are really excited to be taking these pictures, and it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring all of these props ourselves, and we brought like snacks for the kids, so they're gonna be really excited. And then some families are just like, okay, we're here, we never have our picture taken, you're our first photographer in years, please just make us look good. And it's like, okay, I'll do my best. But it's like, it can be a lot of pressure, and that's one of the reasons why I'm terrified of doing weddings. It's something I do want to try someday, but right now I'm a little scared of it.
Yeah, I've seen videos and like stories about shooting weddings, and it's like, it's scary because it's like the biggest moment of somebody's life.
Exactly. That's the other thing. I mean, you can't redo it. So it's like, you got to be there. It's got to be good. All your, your cameras have to work. Your cards have to function properly. And thankfully, I've never lost a card. But like the idea of that scares, it just terrifies me. So there's just a lot of pressure.
Going back to what you said about events, I shot a few years ago an event for my school. And I didn't have a zoom lens. I don't have a great zoom lens still, but I do want to get one soon.
Yeah, definitely. Zooms are fantastic.
Because I have like my go-to lens I use for doll photography. It was hard because like it was a music council event, so I wanted to like get the musicians, but then you want to get close enough to take the photo, but you don't want to be in the way for everyone who's there.
Yes.
But it's kind of like you're the photographer, you have priority in a sense. Like you need to be getting those shots. But it's like awkward, especially like my friends were at that event, but it's like, I'm the photographer. I've never done music stuff at this school before. This is awkward.
I know. And like Zooms are really important for any kind of event, especially like weddings and just, like music festivals or any kind of event like that. And before I had my Zoom, it was just the same thing, right? I had my one camera and I was just switching out lenses between like my shots, and it's nerve-wracking because you're trying to get every moment, and if you miss something while you're switching out your lens, that's a problem, and you also don't want to like fumble one of your lenses. So I don't know, it's good. Zooms are a good invention. I should get more of them.
I was thinking of getting like 100mm because I also want to do airplane photography. I'm really nerdy.
Really? That's so cool, Ally.
I'm really nerdy. Like I live not that far from the airport, so I drive down there and I watch airplanes a lot. And I've brought my camera before, and my camera, if I like crop something in, it's like not that grainy. But I usually don't bring my camera because I can't get a close shot, so I just like do it on my phone.
Do you want to do airplane photography like of them taking off and landing, or like in the air, or just
landing and taking off, just like plane spotting?
So cool! I love that. You're awesome. That is fantastic.
It's just like I have like a bucket list and I want to see like every single airline, and I have so many pictures on my phone of just airplanes I've seen at YVR.
You want to see every airline? Oh my gosh, that is my favorite thing.
It's an actual thing.
It is. I mean, I know this now. I did not know this before now, but I understand that the world is bigger.
Let me see if I can find
fantastic.
it on Instagram, but like...
Well, I mean, since this is your thing, you definitely need zooms. Like, a 105 is great. A 200mm would even be better. Like, definitely get
stuff
some.
like this where you just like find like a plane taking off and you just take a photo of it, but my current lens isn't great for that, especially because there's like fences.
Yeah, what lens are you using?
I normally use my 50mm
awesome.
because it's my favorite. I love that lens to death.
Yeah, I love my 52, but that does seem a little wide for plane spotting. So definitely invest in a longer lens for this.
So what was the first brand or company you ever worked with and got paid for as a professional photographer?
Got paid for it. It kind of all happened the year that I took off from like during my gap year. So I'm not exactly sure what my very first one was. I started working with oh yes I do. I think I do. Olivia's Little World, I think, was my very first one. So they are a great company that makes like doll furniture, and they sent me a bunch of their products, and I just started working with them, and we worked out a thing where I took pictures of them of their products every month or two. And I also worked with like Pixie Fair and Liberty Jane, so I started working with them, and then like around that same time I also started working with Hearts for Hearts Girls, which is one of my favorite doll brands. The dolls are so cute. It's about dolls from around the world, different girls, and they each have like a little diary story about their life and their adventures, and yeah, I adore them. That's a marvelous company.
Do you enjoy working for yourself, or do you ever see yourself working as a photographer for a company in the future?
I really like working freelance. I like having the autonomy and being in like complete creative control of what I'm doing. I pretty much just worked freelance. Like I worked a little bit for a couple of years with Pixie Fair, and I did like that, but overall just having like the creative freedom to take my own pictures and work with companies individually, but like having myself be my own boss was and is just my favorite thing. It's definitely where I hope to keep growing, and if the right opportunity arises where a company wants to hire me and it just seems like it would fit, I'm definitely down for that. But for the most part, being my own boss is a good thing.
So we're going to do something I've been doing in recent DollCast episodes next, and that is playing a game. And I know you're a hardcore American Girl fan, and you have been for a long time, so we're gonna do some American Girl trivia.
Oh my gosh, don't fry me.
Don't worry.
It's been so long since I've read the books.
I think you're gonna get some of them. Don't worry.
All right, let's do it. I'm excited.
So question 1: where was the first American Girl store, and what year did it open?
Oh no. Okay, I think it's Chicago, and I think it was 1998.
Correct.
Yes.
On both. You have to trust yourself. So, who was the first historical character to retire?
Oh, Samantha Nelly.
Yes.
Yeah, sadly, I remember that day. My best friend called me, and like I was crying. I was like 10. I was so sad.
I remember the first retirement I saw when I was like into American Girl was Molly's, and I wanted to cry because it was like, no, and I don't even think I knew that they did retiring and stuff like that at the time.
It's so sad. The time when I learned that Samantha and Nellie were gone, it was just like they were one of the originals. Samantha was one of the originals. You can't do that. I was so disappointed.
So where does Lainey's story take place?
Oh no. Okay, well, I read those books when I was 12. I know her whole thing is nature. I want to say somewhere New Englandish, but I could totally be off, but I cannot put a thumb on it. I don't know.
You are correct about New England. It's Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I said Massachusetts! I was right! I can't believe I said I haven't read those books for 10 years. Oh my goodness. Wow, okay, that makes me feel happier.
And then question number 4, what tribe is Kaya part of? And you can like, and I'm accepting like what the tribe is currently known as today.
It's the Nez Perce tribe, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Number 5. To date, how many Trillimies are there?
Oh, no. I do not know this, and I was thinking about this morning, that I have not learned the numbers of the Trillimies in probably about 4 years. Like, that was the last time I was hardcore trying to get them down. I know we're in the 80s. I don't know if we're in the 90s. I'm gonna say 88.
Correct.
What?
Yes!
No! No!
You know more than you think you do.
Oh, no. Oh my gosh, that was a shot in the dark. All right, well, that's great.
Good job.
Thank you.
I haven't been keeping track of the numbers, like all the recent ones, like the colored hair dolls, even the boy dolls. I kind of don't remember what one is which.
I know. Like, I know there's somewhere in the 70s. That's about, yeah, I really don't know. I think once we got past 61, that was the last time I really started stopped. Yeah, that was the last time I kept counting.
Like, there's some dolls that are really popular, like 67 and even 80. And because they're so popular, I'll know who they are. But if you're like...
Right, like, I know who 80 is.
Who's 69?
Like,
I don't know.
Exactly. I'll know individual dolls, but as the whole, there are about 20 in there just throughout the entire, mass of them that I have no idea.
So I'm gonna now talk a bit about your personal life other than photography. So I know that you have chickens. How many do you have? What are their names? And tell me all about owning them.
Oh, I'm so excited you asked me this. So I have a rooster, a silky rooster, which just is his breed, and he's very fluffy. He's like a furry chicken. And his name is Olive. I have 4 other hens. We got them as chicks earlier this year in May. And we have, their names are Minerva, Woody, and Nessie, and Chester. And they are the sweetest little girls in the world, and even our rooster is just such a sweet little ball. They'll follow me around the yard. I'll like sit down, and my little Minerva will come running, and she'll immediately jump onto my lap and then just sit down and fall asleep. Like, they are truly just the best pets that anyone could have. And I've had pet chickens since I was 8 years old, so they're very much a part of my life.
Would you ever start a YouTube channel for photography, whether that's doll photography or just photography in general?
I actually do have a YouTube channel under the name 5HensAndACockatiel. I just don't post on it very much. So I started it because like back when I really started getting into doll photography, so I think I was 13, and I uploaded like AG slideshows of my photos, and they're terrible and really hard for me to watch, but probably fun for other people to see.
My first video was that too.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I know, and I was always interested in doing stop motions, but I tried to do one I think around the same time. I was like 13 or 14, and I gave up after 10 minutes of trying to make my dolls look like they were sewing, and I thought, this is crappy. I'm never doing this again. So I would love to continue with my YouTube channel, and I'm thinking about doing more stuff like behind the scenes videos of just kind of my day-to-day photo shoots, but I'm probably never going to be able to actually do stop motion, which is what I really, really love to learn how to do. But I just don't have the patience for it.
Same. I'm probably going to get myself to do a 10-minute stop motion for my grad project that I have to do in like June.
10 minutes?
Okay, maybe 5 minutes. 10 might be a bit ambitious.
Like, I mean, when I see these people on YouTube, incredible AG tubers who create like these 30-minute long stop motions, my brain explodes. It's just to the point where it's like, this is too much. I can't even fathom organizing this and putting it out in the world. I mean, even a 4-minute stop motion is incredibly time-consuming.
I just don't have patience.
Exactly. So I applaud you for your future endeavor of making a stop motion that's many minutes long.
Hopefully it will be good, because it's like school, but it's also something I kind of want to do, so documenting the whole process. So I know that your mom sews. She sews a bunch of the clothing and outfits that you have in your photos, and I'm curious, do you sew as well?
I sew a very little amount. I would love to get more into sewing, and I was very much a little seamstress when I was like 7 to 9 years old. Like, I was constantly sewing on my mom's sewing machine, but aside from making like the Rye AG outfit here and there, I don't really sew that much because I get very easily frustrated. I love hand sewing because I'm in complete control. And it takes a very long amount of time, but I really enjoy the process of just like stitching something together by hand. But yeah, actual sewing machine sewing, I want to do it. I have projects that I bought fabric for, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but I have not tackled it yet because it kind of scares me.
Sewing, it's like, oh, go fine, and then I make one mistake. And like yesterday, I was trying to ruche a top, and I could not get it right, and I was just so mad. I unpicked it. Eventually, I figured out a good way to do it, and I'm really happy with the result, but I was getting so frustrated.
Yes, I feel for you, and that's why I haven't. I am one, which I really want to get through this, and I have more or less with my photography, but if something frustrates me, I tend to just kind of, you know, throw a fit in my head and give up for quite a while, and that's what I've done with sewing. So I will get back into it, but as of right now, I'm just happy to watch my mom make incredible things.
So you live in Seattle, in the Seattle area,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite places. I love going there, and
I'm so happy.
it's like, it feels like Vancouver, but it's like bigger than Vancouver because it's like the same climate. And you have Target and Trader Joe's. So what is your favorite part about living in Seattle?
So I live about 40 minutes outside of it, which is for me perfect because I don't have to deal with like city traffic or anything like that. And if I want to go to Seattle for something, especially like concerts and stuff, it's just so easy to be able to just go into the city really quick and get home that same night. But what I really like about living here is probably the climate and just the general varied, or hang on, let me rephrase that. The varied landscape in the area, because we have mountains like within an hour drive. You can like go to Mount Rainier and it's gorgeous, and you have like the forests all around. We have the Puget Sound, so you have like the ocean, which is just marvelous. There are so many hiking trails. You can find gorgeous fields, like if you start going east of where I live. Yeah, there's so many different places, and it's wonderful for when you're wanting to take doll photos, because if I'm trying to create a certain scene with a certain look, I can just drive about an hour in any direction and I'll be able to find the spot. So I definitely think just the general, the mountains, the ocean, all of it is right here, and I love it so much.
That's what I love about the Pacific Northwest in general, because I know where I live too, we've got mountains, and then you can go to the beach. Like if you're sitting on the beach, you can see Stanley Park across from the beach, which has a ton of trees, and then you have the mountains. You always know where north is because the mountains. Pacific Northwest is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So the last category I'm going to talk about in this episode is just general photography. So this could be doll related, but non-doll related as well. So what equipment do you use for your photography?
I love how many people ask me this question, because I feel like folks think it's more secretive than it is, but really I have my 5D Mark III that I use all the time, and then I have a really bad 50mm lens that I need to upgrade. Like I love a good 50. I want a good 50, and I just have like, you know, your $100 one that's from Canon, that's like an f1.8. But I use that for almost all of my shoots. I also have a great 85mm one from Canon, and then my brother lets me use his Zeiss 24mm like f2.8, and that is the one I use for almost all of my AG film recreations, because it really captures the wide angle that I need for a lot of different shots. And I always have a reflector. I always bring like one of those giant 5-in-1 reflectors that I get off of Amazon. And then for dolls, I always bring a pack of skewers to prop them up, because we do try to minimize the face plants, even though they're kind of hard to avoid. But that's kind of the doll kit. And then for people, I think it's just really, I bring like, I have two cameras. So I have two 5D Mark IIIs, so I'll bring them both. I'll bring a couple of my lenses. I have a zoom that I use, like a 24 to 105. But that's about it. And I just kind of use all of those things. I'm not very, like, I feel like I should be invested, or I should invest more into lenses than I do, but I'm one of those people that really tries to like just kind of work with what they have, and I don't love dropping a lot at one time, and lenses are so expensive.
I know, that's why I haven't gotten a new one in like 2 years, because like all the other lenses are so expensive. And I'm like,
They are.
We're gonna get lights, that's cheaper. We're gonna get a microphone, that's cheaper.
Exactly. So you understand. I think a lot of the people who watch or who listen to this are also going to understand. Like, lenses are very expensive. My camera was my first 5D Mark III. I had it for 2 years before it started blinking out on me, and I milked that thing for a full another year with it just kind of dying randomly, and oh my goodness, it was not good, but I just couldn't bear the thought of dropping like over $1,000 on another camera. So I try to make it work, but I do want to get a couple new lenses pretty soon.
So if you could recommend one piece of equipment for somebody starting photography to buy, what would it be?
A reflector, hands down, a reflector. It's easy to get. They're from Amazon. I mean, you can get them off of Amazon for under $30. They're pretty inexpensive, like I said, and they make such a world of difference. Like, when I think I got my first reflector when I was 16, and it just completely changed everything, because you can finally bounce light into the face of your subject. So no more, dark eyes. That's one thing so many people reach out to me, are like, how do you get light in your doll's eyes? And it's just like, you get a reflector, or you get a giant piece of white poster board. Like, that totally works too. And you put it in front of your doll, and you have like the light off to the side or behind them, and you just bounce the light back into their face, and there you go. So that is definitely the best piece, I think. And it's really fun because you can, from that point, start playing around with lighting. Like, you can try to manipulate it in just a very simple way. And I think it's a good starter course in trying to figure out how you want things to be lit.
So how did you learn to do photography?
A lot of YouTube videos and hanging out with my brother. He is a videographer and editor. He works making like TV commercials and stuff, and before that he and I just made like movies together and that kind of a thing. And he's a few years older than I am, so he just, he learned it, and then he would teach me, and then we'd go out and just practice stuff together. But primarily YouTube videos and him. I am one to get easily frustrated, and so if there's something that I don't know how to do, I'll just go onto YouTube and I'll search, okay, how to I don't know, like how to make a Patronus. That's something that I've always wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do Harry Potter pictures, and I wanted a doll to cast a Patronus charm. And so then I just spent, like a day just learning how to do something like that in Photoshop. And then from there, I learned a bunch of other skills that I could apply for like future photos. So it's a long process of YouTube videos and Photoshop trial and error, and just being out and about with my camera. Learning from there, and having it all kind of accumulate over the years.
So have you ever had a point where you were unmotivated or felt like giving up on photography?
Yes, all the time. I still do, which is really sad. And it's not like giving up on photography, but more I don't feel like I am giving enough putting out enough creativity into the world. I feel like what I am making is just boring, or what's been done before, and it's not adding value, and so why bother doing it? And that's one of the reasons why I have like a running list of photo ideas for people and for dolls and for just things that make me happy. Like, I have Pinterest boards, and I have lists of photo ideas, so that when I get to that spot, I can always go there and go, okay, this is something that I can easily do, like this shot I can do, and I haven't seen it done before, and I'm gonna go out and do it, and if it isn't the best, in a few years I can try it again, or I can, do one of these other pictures that I've been wanting to do. But I definitely feel unmotivated. I know, I'm sure you do too. Like, there's always a point at which, you've been burnt out, or you're tired, and you just don't feel like creating. And I think that's totally okay. The only hard part about that is that it's sometimes difficult to get back into the swing of things once you take a break. So that's why it's good to have friends who are creative and who like inspire you, where it's really good to, I think, like have Pinterest boards and, like I said, lists. And yeah, I mean, if you're feeling uninspired, I think another really good thing is to just put on a movie that you really like and think about kind of the characters and the scenes that mean the most to you and why. And from there, especially with doll photography, see if you can recreate a feeling like that in your photos. And it might be terrible, but I think you'll learn a lot from it. And it might get you back into the swing of things.
That's really good advice. I'll have to try that next time I'm like feeling out of it.
Yeah, please do. It's definitely, it's something that's gotten me back on the horse a few times.
So do you prefer taking doll photography, product photography, human photography? What kind?
I really like taking doll photos the most, I would say. I like doing product photography, but just doing my own creative ideas, as I'm sure everybody can relate to when you're working on your own creative project, it's just more fun because you're working on your own idea, and yeah, you're letting it go from there. Something else I love though is trying to create scenes with people, not for a family or for a business venture or anything like that, but just like working with friends and going, okay, I really want to make like this mood. How do we accomplish this by like, setting up a scene with friends and stuff. So I think that that's probably my other favorite on the human side of things.
So I know one of my biggest struggles as a photographer and something I've been wanting to try is night photography. And it's very hard because if it's too dark, it gets grainy, but then if you do too much ISO, it gets grainy. And I'm just curious, what are your biggest tips for night photography?
So when it comes to night photography, are you talking about like doing human pictures or doll photos or just anything in general?
I guess both. I've tried human photos at night more than I have doll ones.
Right. I think first of all, like this is just kind of what I do. Whenever I try to figure out how to do something, I look to photos that have already done it. So I'll go and find images that have the exact look that I'm going for, and it really comes down to lighting. So it's like, okay, where are the light sources coming from? Are there any light sources, or is this like, does it look like it's being lit by the moon? I have flashes that I bring, but generally speaking, I have my shutter speed really low, and so I usually have to bring a tripod, but that really minimizes the grain. And then if you want to do a lot of night photography, it's pretty important to get like a camera that can handle a high ISO. Like overall, in the end, that is really, really important. Some of my favorite night photos I've done was for an event that it was like this historical living history museum that had this event at night, and it was just lit by candlelight, and so you're working with very, very, very orange light. And something that I did was I brought an orange flash and I pointed it at the ceiling of these rooms, and it was able to bounce more orange light into the room so it matched the color of the candles, so that when I was photo editing it still looked like it was nighttime, but I just had a bit more like lighting to deal with than I would have without a flash. That was very, very long-winded and roundabout, but I think
it's okay.
I think that bringing a tripod, really trying to hold still and using a lower shutter speed, and then just trying to bump up your ISO, and even like watching YouTube videos about how to like degrain photos. Like there are ways to do it in Photoshop and Lightroom. It's a little difficult, but like it can be done. So I think that that's really good too.
Last question, and this is one that I believe a lot of people wanted to know if I remember correctly, and that is, do you have any inspirations or role models for your photography?
Yes, but I'm so bad at names that I will probably not remember who they are. Hang on, let me think, because I have like several Instagram accounts that I follow, generally that are like human photography, that I like to try to emulate with my dolls. But hang on for a second, let me pull up on my Instagram and find these people, because absolutely I do. So one person who I love to follow is Alexandria Slens. I think that's her handle on Instagram. But she creates these whimsical, beautiful photos of her her three children in just like these very magical atmospheres and settings. And I've always wanted to do kind of like the more magical side of photography, but I'm not that great at Photoshop. So her work is gorgeous, and I always just love seeing her images. Someone else who I follow on Instagram, who is just one of my favorite photographers, his Instagram handle is mateo.png, and he creates very cinematic images that really have just the most gorgeous lighting. And really when looking at pictures, I always try to analyze the lighting and see what I can do to emulate that in my own photography. So I'm always kind of looking for raw human moments and really good lighting. So his work is gorgeous, and that's something else that I love. And then I love watching like Wes Anderson. His films really inspire me because each still is like a photo in itself, and seeing color work like that is incredible. And so I've tried to kind of color my own pictures at times like his.
I'll have to check all of those accounts out after we finish filming.
Please do.
So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of DollCast. If you guys liked it, please give it a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. And if you're watching this on a podcast site, then be sure to give it 5 stars and rate it and follow this podcast. All of Sydney's links will be in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, and be sure to follow her on Instagram. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!
Bye!